Hey there, I'm Brittany Schroeder, and business and marketing are my jam. I'm here to walk you step by step through this crazy thing we call business. I'm a small town girl, chocolate eating, Diet Coke drinking mom, marketing guru, automation Jedi, and all around good time. This is your weekly dose of all things business and life, sprinkled with some fun. This is the Redefine Business Podcast. Welcome to another episode of Redefine Business Podcast. I am excited for my guest today because before I hit record, we talked and we geek out over the same stuff. So we're super excited to talk about this. Welcome to the podcast, Rita Barry, the president of Rita Barry & Co. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome. Rita, introduce yourself to my listeners. Tell them what you do and just all the things, all the deets.
Okay, for sure. I own a digital marketing agency. We're based out of Canada, but we work primarily with American clients and all female entrepreneurs in kind of the coaching consulting space. And we help those entrepreneurs basically market their businesses, from everything from strategy to paid advertising, funnel builds, all of the stuff, not the technical marketing, but more of like the assets that go into it, and a lot of digital analytics, helping people measure all of those amazing things that they are doing so that they can do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
Yeah. Before we hit record, we were like, what should we talk about? What should we focus on? And we were talking about marketing, and just Rita said, it's not very sexy. And I'm like, oh, it is sexy to me. Like, I like it because we're both analytic, we love the analytics and stuff. But Rita, I want to talk a little bit, let's dive a little bit deeper into, we're talking about that this is something that we see a lot with entrepreneurs is they have a product or service and it's great and they know that it works, but there's no marketing strategy and they're just, social media. I feel like that social media is like the default, that everybody goes on social media. And even then they're posting, but there's no strategy. Let's talk about what you're seeing, that the mistakes that people are making and what they need to do to fix that.
For sure. So yes, you will see the social media stuff so much more. That's like the one thing we don't touch. It's helping people with organic social. But what we see the most, right, is like when we're talking with new clients or just, all the people, is that people are just trying to marry all the tactics together, right? It's like, I've heard that this is like the trendy thing, which always, like, anytime someone's like, what are the new trends? I was like, please do not ask me. Like, that is not my stuff. But everyone's trying to marry tactics together. And like, it's really become conflated between marketing strategy and tactics, like in the marketing, because tactics are so easy. People can sell a course on tactics, right? You see that so much more. So there's just like, I think the kind of the media landscape of marketing is the tactics conversation. And so it's really natural that because I work with a lot of like kind of accidental entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, not people with MBAs or corporate backgrounds. And all you have to go on what marketing is the end point. That's all you see, right? In like a tangible world. So it makes sense that that's what people think marketing is, but it's also what leads everybody astray because they're all just social media. I'm doing short form video on TikTok and YouTube and everything. And it's so divorced from their overall business goals, the marketing strategy that usually doesn't exist because it's so ambiguous. People find it really hard to do. And so then they just get lost and think like it doesn't work, right? Like, oh, social media or this, that, or the other thing doesn't work.
Give us some examples of when you say tactics. What are you like? Give some examples of what you're seeing.
So like if somebody, say, for example, like a business goal is to like increase revenue by what have you, right? Like it's 10% a year, 20% a year, or they want to make, say, 1,000 sales in a year of like their signature program or something. And they're like, the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to post on social media every day, right? Like that's going to be my tactic. And I'm going to pick Instagram because I think Instagram is like a good vibe for like my people, which is probably correct. Like most of the time, if you're judging your platform of choice, most of the time that's right. And so say you're posting on Instagram all of these times a week, maybe multiple times, then you're doing reels, then you're doing, right, all of the different avenues, because obviously there's all the different formats you can do on that platform. And you're doing that. And that is your tactic. And your tactic is like organic social. And maybe it's even super specific, like I'm just going to do short form video on Instagram. That is a tactic. And that is great, right? But how do we measure it? What are we doing with it? What's the goal of like, where are we sending those people? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we know if the time you're spending is actually turning into something that makes the time worth it? Right. And so, especially when you're smaller, you don't usually have as much like the ability to waste as much, just like try stuff out. Usually making money and actually getting a viable business in those early stages is so much more important. And usually, so people will get stuck in that piece. Or like, I should make a webinar funnel. And then they're just making a webinar funnel and they're like, this is just what's going to work. And that's just a tactic where it's like, does your business need a webinar funnel right now? What is the point of that funnel? How will you know if this said funnel is successful or not? How will you tweak components within the funnel to make it work better? There's so many other questions that should get asked before I saw so-and-so, right? Because usually it's like Amy Porterfield, where I'm like, Amy Porterfield's doing XYZ. So I'll usually hear that from folks because she has such a giant platform that people assume what she's doing with her level of business somehow equates to what they should be doing with their level of business without fitting it into where they are, their stage, their preferences, their skill sets, all of that stuff. So yeah.
Well, and I think too, a misconception is we see what these, bigger names are doing. We're like, oh, we have to do it that way. But there's so much more behind the scenes, because you can have a great offer and you can have this webinar, but you need traffic. You have to that's what marketing is like, how do you get that traffic and drive that traffic? And a lot of times, I think people are kind of a little bit deceived because they make it look so easy, but behind closed doors, they could be spending, tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads or Google ads or driving traffic. And they really are.
They are.
Yeah. And that's something that they don't talk about as much. It's just like, okay, do this. But then it's like, you have to have traffic. And that's where you need a strategy. So talk to us a little bit more about that part of, like you have this great whatever offer or lead magnet or whatever, the traffic part, like what are you seeing in your business that is really like the successful people are doing?
Right. The biggest thing that we see like with the successful folks who are kind of in that like leveraged course consultant coaching space is some kind of lead generation activity that's there, whether that, and that's the fun part, like this is what you can kind of let go of the tactics is like all of these are working right now in a variety of businesses that are kind of structured the same way, right? They're all like in that info education space. We've got free lead magnets that are just like PDF, super simple, things that aren't supposed to work anymore, right? Working. We've got low cost front end products like book offers for $4.99, right? Like self liquidating offers that people might be familiar with like $29.39 or $27.37, $47 kind of product totals, going into higher priced offers, webinar funnels, goodness, like all of those really traditional things. They're all working for the people that they're working for, right? And somebody that has a book funnel, maybe that's working better than their free lead magnet, and that's fine. And then we can focus on there, right? And so it's so much more important to know the messaging you need to use to understand your audience really well, and the package, that tactical vehicle you put it in, is really secondary to the messaging piece, which is often something that isn't talked about a lot because messaging is often a lot harder than putting a webinar together. But that's what we're seeing. Like it's working really well when like the people that are really big scale for us are usually using a variety of those things at the same time, right? They're not just relying on a single funnel. They may have a single, like a signature product, if you will, that is the goal is for the most people that come into the business is to purchase that main product and then potentially go on to a bigger sale down the road, if that makes sense for that particular person. And then there's like 5 different ways in to that funnel where like that signature product sale lives. So you've got all of these different types of topics you're talking about, audiences that you would appeal to on all of these different types of like lead magnets or low cost front end offers, all leading to the same kind of core funnel. And then they go into maybe an ascension of some sort to a different product. But everyone's kind of moving into those core places. So usually like that's the place we're trying to get to for everybody, is that they got one funnel that works like gangbusters. And then we start diversifying the traffic that's coming in, just like what you talked about, because the traffic volume, when you have a working funnel, is usually what we're working with around trying to manipulate that and get it higher from a variety of places.
Yeah. You said something that I want to touch on too is I think you talked about like testing to see what's working. And we hear that all the time, like do A/B testing and do this. I find, because I've run like ads before, that when you have a high volume, when you're running ads, but you're putting out the money, it's easier to test. It's faster to test. You can do it organically, but really it's the paid marketing where I feel like that it's easier to test because you're having a higher volume of it. And
Right.
one of the things that you can do is look at some of these people like Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield. Go to their Facebook page, their business page, go to page transparency, and you can see the ads they're running, and they will be running multiple ads for one funnel. And so they're A/B testing what's working, what's not. And then it's the process of elimination. And then you're optimizing and maximizing those efforts. And that's just something that you don't see as much. We don't, it's kind of the behind the scenes. So they are getting those numbers, those analytics.
Right. Everything from different ad creative, different, like every nuance of a platform, right? Like what different campaign optimizations, different settings within the platforms. Like when you're running a really high volume spend like that, you have so much more ability to test. You're testing your landing pages, with that traffic, and you get data. Like that's one of the things that Meta is really strong at in comparison to some of the other social platforms with paid ads, is that they allow for really rapid, low cost testing in a way that like Google ads, which are much better for like long-term stuff, they optimize so much better over time, whereas you get really quick optimization on all the Meta properties. So that's a really good place where we just do message testing on Facebook when we have no intention necessarily of running ads right away, where we're looking at, especially with newer clients who haven't done any message testing, because it's all nice, fine and dandy to say like, this is the messaging we think lands with people, and even have people tell you what messaging lands with them. It's an entirely other thing to actually put the messaging on the platform and see what real people out in the wild actually respond to. So we often do testing just like that for the actual sole reason of just figuring out what's going to land with folks, and using it in other places in the funnels and marketing.
Yeah. And that is a mistake that I see too, is people just are not clear on their messaging, or it's too broad, or, we really like, the more specific you are, you're going to speak to people better, and that is a big mistake that I see is the messaging. And you have to test. You don't know really how people are going to respond. You really don't. Think you think you're in their head, but then you're like, okay, crickets, like this is not working.
Right. And they'll let you know. And that's the great thing, right? Like I remember starting my business too, where like just everything to everybody, right? Like it's just a standard thing that everybody does. And when you actually see the data of it, and I think that's why it's so easy when you've been doing it a long time, right? Where you see the data and you're like, well, this obviously is incredibly specific and it's working incredibly well versus generic, right? And so when you see the data, it becomes so ridiculously clear. But the vast majority of people don't get to hang out in the data like we do all the time, where you're just constantly having that reinforced, so it becomes second nature. But when you're new and you don't have that volume of data from testing on platforms and just general traffic volume that some sites get, it's really hard to see that so clearly with smaller businesses sometimes. Yeah.
Well, Rita, I love all this. This is so good. Tell my listeners how you have a freebie. So tell them, I'm gonna go check it out, but tell them what it is and what it does.
So essentially, one of the things that we kind of the starting point we help people with is really understanding the full breadth and scope of what a marketing department looks like in their business, right? And obviously that differs depending on the size of the business. So the assessment is just that. It's an assessment. It's a little intrusive, but it's all free. And just if you have some dedication to, like, it's 10, 15 minutes, it's not bad. But in internet attention spans, that can feel like a long time. And you can find it at marketingquiz.co, and it'll give you an assessment based on kind of the 5 different areas of a marketing department where your strengths and opportunities are for improvement. And we have lots of people that go through it tell us that just paying attention to the questions helps point out places that they could improve or change what they're doing. So hopefully it's a really useful activity for people, because I know marketing strategy and improving your marketing can feel really ambiguous. So
okay, yeah, I'm going to check that out for sure. Rita, tell my listeners where they can find you. Where's the best place to find you?
The best place, like if people on Instagram, it's Rita Barry CO is the handle. I'm not there a ton. I don't do a lot of social media marketing myself, but my website is ritabarry.co. And so that's kind of the easiest place to get a hold of me. And then I do occasionally check my DMs once or twice a month. And you can email her. I'll get back to people. Yeah.
Email her.
Emailing me better.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Rita, I love this. It's been so good. Tell my listeners, like I like to end the show with telling my listeners what is a simple pleasure and a pet peeve. So let's go with pet peeve first. What is a pet peeve?
My pet peeve is, and this is like my family would laugh at me because I talk about this all the time, but bathroom stalls that have like too wide of a gap. And like awkwardly so, like where you like make eye contact with someone walking by the stall while you're going to the bathroom, like just my skin crawls every time. I was like, that is awful. I'm like, let's just ratchet those a little bit closer, folks.
Yeah.
That's number one. Simple pleasure. I live just outside of Banff National Park in Canada. It is one of the most beautiful places in the planet. So my simple pleasure is just existing in my outside, walking. We live right next to the Bow River, if anyone wants to Google that. So I just live in a spectacularly beautiful place, and all the time outside that I can do hiking, skating, all of the things. That's my happy place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun to chat. So check Rita out. Thanks for coming, Rita.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Let's not stop the party here. Head on over to my Instagram or Facebook group, Redefine Your Business, and let me know your thoughts about today's show. I will see you again, same time, same place, next week.